All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again to Marquette University Law School, the Lubar Center here at Eckstein Hall. I'm Mike Boucher, and this is On the Issues. This is our continuing series of conversations with news and policymakers, people we like to say are doing interesting and important work in this region and beyond. Today, we are joined by the new interim superintendent of the Milwaukee Public Schools, Dr. Keith Posley. Some of you know Dr. Posley. We're going to spend a little time talking about his background before we get into some of the issues of the day. But first of all, let's give Dr. Posley a warm welcome to Marquette University Law School. So Dr. Posley is not a stranger to some of you in this room. He's been in the MPS district since 1990. He was an elementary school principal. He was an assistant principal. He was the principal at Clark Elementary. I remember you, this is a few years ago, and I remember President Bush, then President Bush, saying you were one of 8 exemplary principals. School administration officer, chief school administration officer for MPS most recently, before he became superintendent. But I want to go to the Wayback Machine. I want to talk about you as a kid growing up in Mississippi. Mm-hmm. Tell us about where you were from, and tell us about why education ended up playing the role it did in your life.
Thank you, Mike, for the opportunity. First of all, I'm originally from a wonderful little town in Manatee, Mississippi, which I tell people is a great place to be from. and I say that because I come from very humble beginnings. I was born into a family with a single-parent mom, no father, 10 children, and lived in poverty all my life, and lived in a home where I tell people it leaked inside and rained outside, when it was raining. But I said that to say the reason why education, and my mom was a champion for education, my first teacher, and that's why I'm so embedded with teachers, only with a 6th grade education, but my first teacher. And one of the things that she always said is that you're going to be better than I am. You're going to go to school, you're going to accomplish, and you're going to do great things. Mm-hmm. And so I went to do just that. And at the age of 15, my mom died from breast cancer. And it was a time in my life that basically didn't know where I was going and what I was going to do. But it was teachers that said, okay, there's been a bump in the road, but there's work to be done. And after that, I had to get those butterflies in flying order, and after which, going on to school. I didn't have money to go to school. I was an excellent basketball player. Got an opportunity, scholarship to go to Tougaloo College, where I played basketball for 1 year. And I found out that, hey, if I'm going, no one from this school has ever gone to the NBA, so I need to be working on getting a BA, right? So I spent time working, and I received my degree from Tougaloo College and had an opportunity at that particular time. The Milwaukee Public Schools came to Tougaloo College looking for teachers of color, and I got recruited to come here. And I said I'm going to be here for 1 year. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be going off to graduate school because I wanted to be a physical therapist. And I said I'm going to be going off to graduate school. And after I got here for 1 year, I fell in love with the city, with our young people, and my life has never been the same.
Yeah. So you knew probably back in high school you wanted to be a teacher as soon as high school.
Well, I would say yes, because in a rural community, the only professional people you see are teachers. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to be just like my teacher. And my brother and I, we have conversations to this day about our teachers and, what they taught us and how they just led us through. And I have a teacher right now that I wrote about in my dissertation, Mr. Thomas. Still living, he check on me all the time. When I go home, that's the first place I'm going to say hello.
Isn't that amazing? We all have that story.
Right.
We can all remember a teacher in our lives, or more than one teacher in our lives, who helped send us on our way, who helped steer the course for us down the road.
Right.
So you came here and you were an elementary school teacher.
Yep, Ben Franklin Elementary School.
Yeah. What were those days like? Early days on the job?
Those days were excellent because it was amazing that I grew up in a rural setting, had done my student teaching in a suburban setting, and now here I am in an urban setting. Yeah. And so I had tricks to the trade from a number of different areas, but I had to go back and retool. And all of the support that I received from my principal at that time, James Henry, who was the principal of that particular. Jim Henry, outstanding man, and I'm forever indebted to him. Yeah. And for all the teachers that just came on board and said, hey, look, we got you. We're going to make sure that you're successful, and we're going to make sure that our young people get what they need. And it was amazing. And I stayed there for 5 years, and then afterwards became an assistant principal. Had a number of opportunities, Parkman Middle School, which is no longer around, and as well as it's called Douglas now. And then also Carlton as an underfield. Had an opportunity to go over to Forest Home Avenue School, which was the largest elementary school at that particular time, 967 students. And that was my first assistant principal assignment. It was a bilingual school, and I mean, every program there were to offer in the Milwaukee Public Schools at the elementary level was offered there, and that's where I contribute my administrative learning, is at Forest Home Avenue School.
I want to pick up on that point. I hope you'll indulge me for 1 second. You mentioned Jim Henry. What a great mentor.
Yes.
And you know, life is interesting. My father is a former MPS superintendent, so he was there when Jim Henry was there. And my father's now 95 years old, and he lives out on the West Coast, and he still hears from Jim Henry. Every year he sends him a card. Hey, how are you? It's amazing, those relationships that you have and who you learn from. So let's continue with your story. So you now have this big job.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm wondering what the experiences that you had as an elementary school teacher, as a principal, what were the lessons you learned from those jobs that you're using to guide you today?
There's constant. The one thing that's guiding, and it's which guides my five priorities for success, is the areas in which we were successful in. And one of the things that I am just 100% true on from that experience, we have to build a foundation for our young people. And that foundation starts with math, reading, writing. And then I have also added another leg to that, and that's being in attendance on a daily basis. But I also learned how to collaborate, how to get along and work with people. And I can truly say that's one of my strong suits, is the idea of working with others and bringing the best out of others. I've been able to do that, and that's one sign of leadership, getting people to go to places they would have never gone alone, but you can get them to go there. And that's a characteristic of leadership that I look at. And some of the other things is that the idea that it takes time and it takes working together. It's a team approach. We can do this as a team. I can't do anything alone. And no one gets to where they are alone. And I know that. And every day I live that and work with my staff that way to make sure, because we're greater together and working on something with the same common cause and purpose.
I want to break down our discussion today and maybe to three areas, at least to begin with, and talk about the challenges and opportunities facing MPS. So we'll talk about academic achievement, we'll talk about some of the fiscal challenges facing the district, and I also want to talk about competition, voucher schools, charter schools. MPS is part of this educational ecosystem, as some people call it. I want to begin with academic achievement, and you just touched on a core belief of yours that we need to do better in reading, writing, and arithmetic. Did we lose our way over the years in terms of emphasizing those very core, those very basic functions in education?
No, Mike, I don't think so. I think just that, the education paradigm, there's all kinds of different avenues that's going to come through. And I think a lot of times there are new innovative approaches to doing things. And I think we sometimes as educators get caught up in that. And I think, but at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do without that foundation. And I think a lot of times we look at ways where we're trying to build a home from the roof downward. It doesn't work that way. You build a house from ground up, foundation up. And when you build that sound foundation, children will go where they need to go. And we just had a conversation today about that. 1,825 days. It's crucial. That's those first 5 years of school. And making sure that our young people receive everything they need at a mastery level. And the opportunities in this world is open to them.
You've got a big job ahead of you. We'll talk about numbers here. The last test results I looked at from a year ago, only about 12 to 15% of the MPS student body was considered proficient or above proficient in reading or math. One of the lower performing large urban districts in this country. How do you change those numbers?
And one of the things that we have looked at, one of the things I've added is a department of communication and school performance. Number one, you got to look at it. And then after you look at it and diagnose exactly what's happening, looking at item analysis, every one of our meetings, we start those meetings with taking a look at the data. What the data telling us? What data points are we going to be chasing? But along with that, we have come up and looked at math, reading, and writing. There's all type of strategies that you could go forward, high-yield strategies, research-based strategies. We have narrowed that down to strategies that we're going to focus on in math, reading, and writing. We're going to do it with fidelity of implementation every single day, all day long. If it's reading, it's looking at reading, given the first reading block, and then looking at more of an authentic reading block where you get to read and do things that you like. You know, like I tell people all the time, reading is something that comes natural, right? Mm-hmm. But as soon as I pick up the newspaper, the first place I go is the sports section. Mm-hmm. I can read the business journal if I like. Right. But the thing about it, the sports section, because it does something for me. And that's what we have to do for our young people, that authentic piece, being able for young people to see themselves in their literature. And it was amazing as a child growing up. It was 10th grade when I first got a book from Richard Wright entitled Black Boy. I had a chance to read that particular book and what it did for me, internally. And young people love it every single day. And we got to find ways to get them to engage and let them know that reading is a way of life. You can't do anything in this world if you can't read. And the flip side of it, you know, it's been said in the Milwaukee Public Schools that math is the gatekeeper to college. But that's true as well. But I'm a firm believer that if you can't write, you can't get out of college. And so we have to make sure all of our young people have those foundation skills. But going back to looking at that particular piece, it's all hands on deck around that, making sure that young people are receiving what they need. And I have gone around this city talking to every dean of the School of Education and various individuals in their education department. What I need is student teachers. What I also need is individuals that are doing their practicums. I need individuals that's going to be doing any kind of work placement, skills that are going to have to go out and get to attain skills to get their job, get their degree, and basically call it community service hours or whatever you want to call it. But I want all of those individuals on deck, because I want all of those individuals transforming our classrooms on a daily basis, volunteers, everyone. And the reason is the idea of small group dynamics. And we have to look at how do we get to small group dynamics in our classrooms on a daily basis. How do we get there?
Do you have enough teachers?
We could always use more teachers. Yeah. But also, I will say to you, we can also use more volunteers. To just go in, just think about how powerful it would be for a young person to just be able to read to you, to go over their basic facts with you, be pen pals with you. And for you to go, or anyone, to go and check on them on a daily basis or weekly basis. This gives young people a rise, get them excited. And I've noticed over the years, when it comes to this whole thing around athletics, young people are eligible, when the season is in, they're eligible. As soon as the season go away, they drift back into habits that is not conducive to learning. And we got to find ways, that's through the arts, any type of way that we can get around our young people to support. And I've told my staff that if a child cannot read, write, or do math, it's not just the teacher's responsibility and the parent's responsibility, it's all of our responsibility. One of the things that I have put in place as well is called the MPS way. Same thing I did at Clark Street School. I call it the Clark Street School way. And basically what I'm doing is I have identified every single individual that work at 52nd and Valette around academics. They have an assignment to be in schools supporting instruction. If that's me pulling a reading group, pulling a math group, or pulling a writing group, that's what we're doing. And we got to get all boots on the ground when it comes to our young people, because they can't wait.
I want to ask you about something else you're doing. You're making some structural changes in a number of schools, more than a dozen schools. Why are you doing that, and what do you hope to gain from that? Maybe explain the kind of structural changes, examples you could give to the audience, what they look like and why you're doing it.
All right, great. And I'll start with a little illustration that I use, is the idea that as a kid growing up, I wasn't a good baseball player. And I had an opportunity to sit on the bench and watch all of the excellent baseball players play. And at the end of the game, I was always looking for the coach to bring me in. Never did he bring me in. And so I used to fall in the dirt so that I could get my uniform dirty, so I could take it home and say, Mom, guess what? It looked like I've been in the ball game today, right? But I said that to say, I've had an opportunity, great leaders have an opportunity to, number one, you must be a great follower. I've had a number of years to follow. I've had a number of years to observe and watch what's taking place and what needs to happen. So on May 21st, when I was appointed to this assignment, I knew what I needed to do. And I changed the organizational structure. It's the Milwaukee Board of School Directors. It's the superintendent of schools. And I have two deputy superintendents. I have a deputy superintendent on the academic side of the house, and I have a deputy superintendent on the business side of the house. On the academic side of the house, it's the Office of School Administration and the Chief Academic Officer. And then on the business side of the house, I have the Chief of Human Resources and the Chief of Finance. And then I shared with you, I created a new position, Chief of Communication and School Performance. And I did that to make sure that I could get support around schools and get support and have individuals out there, because it's two different functions that we're working with. We're working with, we're going to talk about finance a little later. There's a different side of the house, but it all coincides and feeds to the classroom. But I have those two separate. We all come together and work on what we need to work on. But the bottom line is just try to put support around young people, the classroom, the most important place in the district.
So you're doing, with some of these schools, you're changing them from like K through 8 to K through 5. Why?
And that particular piece is in the 53206 initiative. And what we have looked at is the 53206 area. I have gone all around the state, from the governor's office to every office that's made up and comprised in basically state and local government. And what I have tried to do is that, number one, I have to make sure that we increase the number of students that are going to school in that particular area, in that zip code. That zip code, as you know, that have a number of poverty issues and things that are associated with poverty. I looked at that and said, hey, this is where I'm from. This is what I have done all of my life. And I have worked in those type of schools, as well as lived in those type of communities. And I know that every single young person in that 53206 zip code has the same hope and aspiration as I had as a young person. And so what I did is looked at, what are we doing here? And I said, number one, we will have one flagship high school, legacy high school. That'd be North Division High School.
North Division.
And looking at rebranding, retooling, and making great things happening in North Division. Then I looked at the idea, we have a number of K-8 schools and a middle school. Then I wanted a state-of-the-arts middle school. So and that's going to be Andrew Douglas. And then we took a look at, we have all these K-8s, and we toned that down to have a couple K-8 schools. And then we went to K-5 schools. And then one of the schools in the area, Green Bay, we're looking at closing that school for the upcoming school year and creating a success center. That success center is a situation when a young person may have received a suspension at a school or whatever the situation may be, and that other than being suspended to go home, we're suspending you, and that child will be suspended to go to the Success Center. They will have teachers there, trauma-informed care support there, and all of the support that is conducive to learning. And then they will return back and re-engage. So they have not missed school at all, because I'm pushing attendance. They have not missed school at all, but their instruction has been taking place. And we have to get our hands around it. And each one of those schools, I have started to, I made sure that the curriculum is solid. We have basically added additional support staff in those schools, because this whole thing around trauma-informed care, I have a school counselor, social worker, psych services. We have upped the FTEs there in order to make sure that we have support. We have upped the FTEs for our parent coordinators that we have in those particular schools to make sure that our young people are receiving what they need to receive. And then we have a trauma team that is going to be mobile, one in North Division, and one is going to be in Iowa Avenue. And those teams are going to be made up of a social worker, psychologist, school nurse, school safety, and a trauma-informed care person that is going to go and not only just work with the students, our goal is to also work with families when they need the support. And the reason I've been going to look for state and local type of support around this, because I want to help, we want to help the whole entire family. Because if we can build strong parents, we're going to have strong children. And so therefore, that's the purpose of trying to make sure that we are full inclusive service and looking at how do we reinvigorate that area, looking at home ownership. Right. How do we manage to make that happen? There's homes that are not in existence or maybe boarded up. How do we change ownership and provide ownership to families as well as our staff to move into those areas? And once we build strong communities, we're also going to build strong families.
So the 53206 zip code is a special point of emphasis, the schools that exist in that zip code. You touched on something right at the beginning of our event today, and you talked about patience. And so here's my question. As you implement these changes, these initiatives, how patient should the people of Milwaukee be in waiting for results?
I would say, Mike, I would say this to you. We have to move at a fast pace, and I'm moving at a fast pace. My team is moving at a fast pace, but I have to be upfront and honest. Results doesn't move as fast. It takes time to get to where we need to be. And I'm a firm believer, there was something that Magic Johnson says to the organization, say, hey, look, if I can't get this work done, this is what Magic Johnson said, if I can't get this work done in 2 years, remove me because I'm not the right person. I feel that same way. I know exactly what needs to happen. It's not the idea that I got to wait and think about, find out where the worker bees are located, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. I know where the support is, who's going to get the work done, how we're going to get the work, the dynamic teachers that we have in the district. I know about that. So now it's all hands on deck, and we are running to make that happen. So we're looking for incremental change. One of the things that I have the team doing is reading a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins, an old book, but a good one. And we talked about MPS being a good school district, but our goal is to go to a great school district. We have traveled all around to look at the exemplars. We know what the exemplars are saying. Well, I've worked to get the right people on the bus, so the right people on the bus. And so now, and he talks about in his work, believers. I got the believers at the table. And I have been working with this community, and the community is embraced. They are working along with us. Everyone knows that if we have a strong Milwaukee Public School, we're going to have a strong Milwaukee and a strong Wisconsin. And we are the fuel that fuels the engines. And so we have to do work, and we have to do it fast, and we have to be productive in our work. And so we can't waste time. The time that has been granted, we have only a minute to get this work done.
And it's okay for people to be a bit impatient and say, we'd like to see some results in the not too distant future.
Constructive criticism have always made me rise to the occasion. And if I got someone that's patting me on the back saying, oh, let's go, you're doing such a great job. And one of the things I always, and as a child on, my mother was never satisfied. I'm the same way. And we got to continue to work until we can get to where we need to be.
Can you be a great school system given some of the fiscal realities that MPS faces? So you take this job and you walk into a situation where there's a $30+ million deficit staring at MPS, and you had to make some hard decisions, and you, rather than take money out of the classrooms, you decided to cut back on the central office functions. First of all, explain why you made that decision. It's kind of a bold decision for a new guy on the job. Why did you do that?
And I shared with you earlier, classrooms. The classroom is the most important place in the district. I know what teachers did for me. I know if we're going to make a change, it's going to happen in the classroom. It's not going to happen outside of the classroom. It's going to be in the classroom. And I have to put every ounce of money that we have there. I put 89 cents of every dollar in this district is in that classroom. My goal for the upcoming school year is 90 cents of every dollar in that classroom. And when I put money into the classroom, we're going to yield results. Because when I talk about small group dynamics, I know it works. You can't come to me and tell me that you can't teach 8 children how to read, but you can make a debate if it's 32. So if we can get young people, we can get our classrooms smaller, all hands on deck, with a mission of academic excellence in the forefront. There's all kinds of things that I could hang my hat on as the interim superintendent of schools. But where I'm going to hang my hat is that math, reading, and writing, all of my professional development is geared there. That's what we're going to talk about. There's other things we're going to be doing. We're having a high school fair for the first time today. But at the end of the day, it's math, reading, and writing. We're going to do all those things as well. But it's all about that and everything. And that is an area that no one can debate around the area of math, reading, and writing, and children being in school.
So to the fiscal realities you face, though, so you solve it for this year, but the Wisconsin Policy Forum, which used to be the Public Policy Forum, comes out with a report and says, man, 3 or 4 years out, it looks pretty bleak for MPS. It could be staring at deficits far larger than the one you had to deal with right off the bat. How do we find fiscal sustainability? How do we find a recipe for long-term success when we're facing these kinds of deficits on a fairly regular basis?
Great question. And what we have to do is just like I did this past year. We're going to look at what we have. And I'm one of those individuals. I'm going to make it happen with whatever I have. And I'm a firm believer that we have to embrace that. And we have to look at what we need to do. First of all, I want to go back and let you know that the Milwaukee Public Schools are alive and well, and we are going to do great things. Yes, we would love and to have more money, but we are going to take what we have and make a difference for young people. But we have some things that I have a list of different things that I've been working with the Milwaukee Board of School Directors on, and we're going to be coming together to talk about forecasting for the upcoming year's budget and how we go about. But some of the information, we were supposed to have like a $38 to $40 million deficit shortfall. And with some of the cuts that I've made, it's helping to right-size some things. But there's some things that we can do different. One of the things that I worked all summer on is this whole thing around making sure that's going to change the narrative is enrollment. Had a full-fledged campaign this summer, canvassing, knocking on doors, asking young people and families to please make the Milwaukee Public Schools your choice. And we have done it, bus tours, everything that we could possibly do. So enrollment is number one. There are some other items that I'm going to be bringing to the board that, that we are going to look at. But I truly say, working together, and that thing that I talk about, collaboration, working together, the administration, the board, the community at whole, the Milwaukee Teachers Educational Association, everyone coming together, parents, for the betterment of young people and what we need to do. And if, in times of low funds, what can we not do to make sure children have what they need?
I want to get a quick reaction from you to what the superintendent of public instruction, the state school superintendent, Tony Evers, proposed recently. An additional $1.4 billion in spending on public schools. Some of that money would go to the 5 biggest school districts in the state, including MPS. What would something like that mean to MPS, based on what you've been able to discern so far?
I have created a wish list already. So all we got to do is say money and we can create a wish list. One of the big things that in years past, there was something that we did that I'm working on right now, where we brought practice and theory together, right? So I have practitioners on a daily basis, those outstanding teachers that are in classroom and administrators that are in schools on a daily basis. But the universities have the individuals that work on theory every day. But to bring that together, and we had something called the Milwaukee Mathematic Partnership, where we had mathematicians in the classroom working along with our teachers and making sure that our young people got what they needed. Those are the kinds of things that I want to look at. Another piece is having individual growth plans for each one of our young people, talking about what they need. Keith Posley need A, B, and C, and teaching them how to advocate for themselves. And the other piece, that one of the things on a reform model that I looked at with this Harvard Lab School, where the one thing that is paramount that we need is individual tutors for our young people on a daily basis, and being able to pull individuals out in small groups and work with them. So those are 3 things that's just right out the gate that I'm just thinking about. And then this other thing that I worked on this morning is early childhood education, early literacy. We talked about that 1,825 days. What do those days look like? When a child come into this world, we should have a gift package right there for them of books. Something that I didn't have as a kid, to be able to read a book, because I didn't have books in the house. So, but the thing about the Bible, I got a chance to read that all the time. But the thing about it is that, but give young people that opportunity, and we want to be able to give that to them. So that's how we could spend some of those dollars.
Okay. So competition.
Yeah.
You've got MPS, you've got voucher schools, you've got charter schools. You know this, there are people in the district who view the competition as an existential threat to MPS, that this is a real problem for MPS. How do you view this competition that exists in Milwaukee for students? How do you view it?
I put it like this: competition is going to make us better. Healthy competition is always great. I look forward to it. And at the end of the day, the Milwaukee Public Schools, I'll tell anyone, it's the best brand in town. And when you talk about going from good to great, we got to up the brand. We got to increase the brand. You increase the brand by getting test scores. You increase the brand with math, reading, and writing. And I'll be the first to tell you, come into a radio station or a TV station near you, you'll get an opportunity to say, breaking news, the Milwaukee Public Schools, for the first time, surpassed the state's average in the area of math, reading, and writing. Can you believe it?
How soon?
Hey, a good question. I'll put it like this. You give me 5 years. 2 to 5 years, we will get, I won't say 2 years, but 5 years we'll get there. We're going to make incremental change to get to where we need to be. We have a gap that we have to address. So I'm being realistic about that. But it will be in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm. I got to ask you a related question to the enrollment issue, and you talked about earlier how hard you've been working that this summer. But some of MPS's critics, I guess you could call them, say The district is under-enrolled compared to historic norms, which might be 110 or 120,000 students. You've got 76 or 77,000 now. You've got vacant buildings, underutilized buildings. Why not sell some of those buildings to others? You could use the money right now. What's your response to the people who suggest that MPS should be selling off these buildings that are underutilized?
I would invite any of those individuals to come on a daily basis and take a walk with me over the 160 schools. And I've had an opportunity, and I basically do anywhere at a minimum of 5 schools a week. I'm past that as of today. Every school that I go into, we're using the space to its capacity. And the schools has been redesigned. And when you look at numbers of what schools used to be, we have come up with Project Lead the Way labs. We have made computer labs. So we don't have that particular space. And when you go to looking at those numbers, they're talking about student population. You know, you're looking at, we got professional development centers in one of our buildings. So we have a number of shared space that we're using, and we look at that. However, we do have a surplus list of schools, and they're out there. It's not a secret. We have a surplus list of schools, and we have made it clear to anyone that wants to take a look at it. And so therefore, and that list is open. So we are using every ounce of space that we currently have. But we also have growing programs. We have our Montessori program. That's a growing program. We're looking at this whole thing around dual language, bilingual education, looking at that particular piece. There are some areas of the city that we're having a boom. I was excited. The northwest side of the city this year, and I've been watching the northwest side for probably the last 16 years because I've been responsible for the northwest side of the city. We had an increase in students in the northwest side of the city. That was something that I just got all excited about. So we're making a difference, and some of the schools that we're looking at are smaller buildings that was designed for 200 students or 300 students. So, and also the ones that are under, we have a growth model that's in place of how we're going to grow to the numbers that we need to be there. So it takes time.
Are you receptive to selling off vacant buildings?
By no means. We have truly, what we have done is the idea. We make available every single year the excess list. And that has never changed. And the 160 that we are using to its full capacity, we're making it happen in every single day.
I want to get your response to something. A few months ago on my TV show, I interviewed Governor Walker, and we talked a bit about MPS. And during that conversation, he said that it might be time to shake things up in MPS. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing him now, that money was not the problem for MPS. Are you concerned that there may be efforts to shake things up at MPS, break it into smaller districts, a number of smaller districts? Do you have any concerns about that?
Mike, my focus is moving this district forward and making sure our young people get what they receive. I'm not concerned about that. I'm going to hear all types of things.
Dealing with what you have today.
I have enough to deal with every day to keep me up from that 7:30 to usually, 8, 9, 11 o'clock at night. And our goal is to educate young people in this city. And that's what we're going to do from every single day that we walk into those doors. And all I think about is how we can make things better. I don't focus on what might happen or what will happen in the future or whatever or what that's out there looming. I'm one of those individuals that's going forward because throughout my life, I've always had the stories that what's going to happen, and you know what? Most of those things never happen. So, but at the end of the day, I'm indebted to a job and a responsibility to educate Milwaukee's youth.
How do you maintain good relations with the school board and the teachers union over time? There have been past superintendents, they come here and they have great hopes for having a good, cordial relationship, and sometimes it's not so cordial, it's not so good. How do you intend to keep the relationship with those two important entities healthy?
I think the key is collaboration. I talked earlier about that. Collaboration, it's going to be give and take, and it's collaboration, working together. We could disagree on anything, but it's how we disagree. And I have to understand your position. You have to understand my position on it. But at the end of the day, what I have vowed to do, I've vowed to do with the board as well as the teachers union and anyone else, our focus is children. Our focus are children. It's not individual. It's not about me. I have to make sure whatever happens, I'm a conduit for young people. And I have to shield off all of that kind of stuff. And I have to work collaboratively with anyone that want to work with young people. And I have to make sure that they get and receive everything that they need. I can't get that for them, arguing, pushing back and forth on issues. We got to find common ground on issues so we can solve problems for all of our young people.
The last time Dr. Driver was here, I asked her a question, and this is a somewhat similar question, but it gives you a chance to talk about what's right with MPS, because you get, a fair share of criticism and people tell you what's wrong with MPS, but what's right with MPS in your mind?
What's right with the Milwaukee Public Schools is we are transforming lives every single day. There are success stories every single day that go untold, because if it bleeds, it lead. But just think about all the success stories. Look at yourself. All the success stories that come out of the Milwaukee Public Schools on a daily basis. The amount of scholarship dollars that we received this year for our young people. Outstanding. I mean, more of our young people are going off to college. Our outstanding programming, our Montessori programming, our bilingual programming, our AP programming, our IB programming. We even have our charter school programming. We have a litany. Every education genre that you would ever want to be a part of, we offer. We have our rich diversity. Over 70 languages being spoken in the district on a daily basis. There is just so many great things that are happening on a daily basis. We have one of the only schools in this state, basically, an urban setting, our urban ag program that's out at Vincent, where we have from the farm to the table. I grew up on a farm. I learned things about the farm through our understanding here that I knew in this great state of Mississippi, and I was doing it on a daily basis. And we got from farm to table, culinary art programs in there, our rich language programs, our arts programs. It's just so many great things that are happening on a daily basis, and you have to meet our young people. That's the source of inspiration. And when someone asks me, what can we do for you? I say, hey, come and see my young people. I'm not asking you for anything. You come and see those 75,781 students that dons the doors of the Milwaukee Public Schools on a daily basis. You will tell me how you're going to support them.
You mentioned Vincent High School. There was something in the news recently about an upgrade that MPS was making to athletic facilities.
Yes.
And there were some comments made by a conservative blog that were not terribly flattering about the students of MPS. What was your response to that?
It's a sad day and I said to myself, there's someone that don't know our children. They don't know the success stories. They don't know what they want to do and where they want to go and the admirations that they have. And then the other side of it, the overflow of the community, how they sent letters and talked about the great things that young people are doing. And that's only one person's opinion, right? And we had one of our students that stated, one of our scholar students wrote a letter back and said, thank you. Because, and we look at that, and she said, thank you. But just to think about it, this is someone that don't know our young people. It's divisive, and we're not going to let that deter our growth of where we need to go. And we're going to be supportive. And we talk about that rich diversity that we have. We pride that, and we're happy and understand that. And on a daily basis, but the thing about it, we're going to show you what we're about and what we're going to do. We're going to show you the great things that's going to happen at Milwaukee Vincent and all of our schools within the city.
I got to ask you a final question. We'll take a couple of questions from the audience here, as we often do. But here's my final question. Right now, I introduce you as the interim school superintendent for MPS. Do you expect that interim label to be removed anytime in the near future?
I would truly say to you, I hope so. And I'm going to say this, as a teacher, when I came into this district, I said in a unique situation. I came into this district as a teacher. When I became an assistant principal, I was underfilled. When I came when I became a principal, I was acting. Mm-hmm. When I became an administrative specialist, which is basically the regional superintendent's job, acting. When I became the chief school administration officer, acting again. And then when this particular job, I got a new title, interim, and I'm proud of that. But listen, and I'll say to you, that's a decision of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors. But I will say this, I have given it 110%. The staff is working with us. We are doing some great things. We're making some things happen. And like my mom always said, make the best of it, of what you have when you have it. So I have the wheel now, and I'm driving.
So if you were, let me take this one step further. If you were the superintendent, not the interim superintendent, mm-hmm. How long would you be willing to commit to stay here? Because I have to tell you that as you look back at the history of the Milwaukee Public Schools, we've had a lot of superintendents. We've had 10 superintendents mm-hmm. in the last 25 years or something along those lines. I'd have to go back and look at the exact numbers, but I'm close. How long would you be willing to stay here? Because it takes time mm-hmm. to make changes, to change culture, to have progress. How long would you be willing to commit?
Mike, this is home. Mississippi is in the rearview mirror. Mm-hmm. I got a new M, Milwaukee, and this is home. I'm not going anywhere. I'm indebted to this community. There's been a number of times that there's been job opportunities that have come this way. And I was like, no, I'm the story of good things do happen to those who wait. And I have stayed here. I'm going to end my career here. And as far as how long would it take, I will tell anyone it's going to take 3 to 5 years to get us where we need to be. I'm indebted to the journey, and I'm willing to roll up my sleeves just like I have done every single day. And no matter what happened in this journey, I'm going to still do that mm-hmm. because that's who I am.
Let's take some questions for Dr. Posley. If you have a question and you're in the seating bowl down here, press on that black button in front of you and we'll all be able to hear your question. If you are in the back, Ryan, the gentleman in the red shirt over there, has a microphone. He will hold the microphone so that you can ask your question. All we ask for is brief questions, no speeches. That tends to make things run a little bit better. So let me start right there. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Posley, for sharing your plans and views. You talked about the value of bringing in volunteers into the schools to support teachers and students. Can you talk a little bit about your plans to strengthen the skills of your current teachers and strengthen the leadership skills of your current principals?
Great question. Some of the things that when I was talking to the deans, I've been creating pipelines. And I just created one this week with Marquette University. Dr. Cynthia Elwood, oh, she's right over there. We're just looking at how do we create principal development and how we get there with principals. Of course, we know we have to have dynamic principals in classrooms. The other side of this is the teachers. I have streamlined that. Everything we do is going to be laser focused around math, reading, and writing. All professional development has been front-loaded. We spent this summer working around that. I've been working with, had individuals come in this time for the first time during Principal Institute Week. I had principals to bring a team of teachers with them to work on. The morning session was providing professional development. They take that professional development back to their school that afternoon and work on how you're going to implement this at your location. And then we come back and we do it over. And we're going to have that same type of thing that's going to be happening throughout the school year. I have created pipelines with a number of universities here, not just picking on Marquette University, but all of the other universities. We have some form of a pipeline around teacher development. But one of the other things that we have to do is to let it be known that teaching is a noble profession. And we need more individuals to go into the School of Education. There are very few people now are going into the School of Education. We needed 300 teachers this year. And when we did a polling around the state of Wisconsin, that we couldn't even get 300 out of all of the schools if we got everyone that they were turning out. So we have to create all of these pipelines, and we're creating grow your own pipelines with our paraprofessionals to get them ready to step in as that particular teacher. And then looking at non-traditional educators of how we can get them there. We got part-time teachers. I have supplemental teachers that I brought into the budget this year to make sure that we meet that need. And one of the big things that I've always watched and seen is that we were never able to fill all of our classrooms. I sit here to share with you today that we got there this year. I think we're like 14 teachers down, but we have about 30 in the pipeline that's ready to go. I hope I answered your question.
Other questions? Yes? We got it. Just keep your finger.
Got it?
That's all right. We got it.
Okay. Chris Holmes from Penfield Children's Center. So we deal with little ones.
Yes.
You mentioned early childhood. We had some speakers here last year talk about whether or not schools are responsible for social emotional development of children. I wonder where you come down on that, because many of the kids are not able to learn because they're not emotionally ready to sit or ready to absorb things. So where do you come down on that topic for your schools?
With the whole thing around social emotional learning, that is something that is coming very soon. I just met with a group of teachers as well as administrators around how we develop this in our school. We have a program now where we run and take a look at from kindergarten through first grade. The children get to make some choice times and those kinds of things. I'm looking at extending that up to fifth grade on a few days out of a week. And what we have done is did a laser focus around math, reading, and writing, constructive type of things that we deem that are necessary to be able to do during that particular time. Yes, we need, young people need choice time because they need to, that's that growth development piece. And we don't want, and children learn so much through play and movement, and we want to tap into all of those areas. And so making sure that our young people have that opportunity. So we have something that is going to be coming out to a school near 160, well, not 160 schools, basically like 110 of them, basically around social emotional learning, and we have a wonderful document that I think that children are going to benefit from, teachers are going to love, and we're going to have a more robust environment in our schools.
Yes. Sure.
Hi, I'm Deb Lukovich. I'm the Executive Director of Playworks, and this might be a naive question because I'm not a professional educator. I'm just a mom, and I spend a lot of time in schools with Playworks. But I love when people share their childhood school experiences because the one thing I've noticed is that every single time you ask a successful person what was the difference in their education, they will say they had at least one caring adult that believed in them. And I'm a lifelong member of this community, and it seems like for decades we've focused on academics and STEM, and I was really surprised to learn that when teachers go to School of Education to become a teacher, they don't really learn how to relate to children and how to build rapport with them. And if the lever seems to be that the relationship, that's the lever is the relationship, that I just wonder how you square that with the focus, almost all the focus on reading, writing, and math. And I think of the old saying that children don't really care what you know until they know that you care. So I haven't really heard you talk about relationship.
Great. Relationships is key, and that's great. And this is the whole thing around a teacher residency program. And also I talked a little bit about talking to the schools of education to bring individuals in, basically student teachers, practicum students, and individuals that want to have community service type of thing. This is an opportunity where you develop that relationship. I was trained in one of those traditional education programs, but I will share with you today that's changing. And I tell you, my first 3 years as a teacher was in learning mode, because I was, just like I had attended a rural school. My training was in a suburban school, which totally different, and then now in a urban setting. So we are looking at all of those kinds of things. That was one of the things that when I talked to Dr. Elwood about, same thing when it comes to principals, is the idea of what happens after the university is done. So we're talking about the 2-year lag time, somebody working along with them, and that's what I want, to build that relationship. And that's the same thing I'm asking universities. If it's Cardinal Stretch University or either UW Milwaukee, commit to supporting that teacher after they have graduated from your program. And we have walked them through this pipeline. But also what we are going to do, this whole thing around relationships, when I Grow Your Own program, that's all of these paras that's coming through the pipeline. They've been working with young people 10, 12 years. So they have built those relationships. And the other side of it, you have to love young people to work with young people. And I knew all of my teachers that didn't care for me. But the idea, my mom said to me, hey, don't care I'm not sending you to school to have a love affair. I'm sending you to school to learn. So therefore, there was an expectation that I had to make sure that I received. But I think children do well when they know that their teacher care. And I can, and I, just like I talk about Mr. Thomas, I'll knock a wall down for Mr. Thomas.
Other questions? Yes.
Hi, Barb Felix, proud graduate of Washington High School.
Yes.
So I'm so pleased to see all the good things happening, and I do have concern. One of the things that happened at Washington High School was the Gates Foundation several years ago made a lot of money available to break it up into small schools. That was done, and that money ran out, and then that project ended, and something else began. How do you consider funding that comes from other sources to advance your goals?
Okay, and let me just say, when it comes to high school, the Gates money that was in high schools, and it was small schools. And just think about, we operate off of a per pupil allocation. And if you have a small school, you can't have the offerings that you would like. You can't have chemistry 1 and 2 and cobalt or whatever you want to call it. The bottom line is that the larger comprehensive high schools are able to offer those kinds of things. And I just want to be able to give young people what they need versus I'm a product of a small high school. Some of the things that I did not get a chance to be a part of, and actually my high school went from 7th grade to 12th grade, 22 people in the graduating class. There are some classes that we were not able to offer. And I want children to have that true high school experience so that they can go off to the university, dual enrollment at the university as well as in the school. And through those Gates dollars, it didn't allow us to do that. And when you go back and look at the Gates dollars and the schools that came out of that, very few are there. And then you talk about the collaboration piece. You're putting 4 or 5 schools inside of one building, and you got to have a building manager and all those kinds of things. We got to work with collaboration, and we talk about being fiscal responsible and pooling resources together that our young people receive what they have. And we do offer smaller high school settings if there are students that would like to have that.
I'm looking at the clock. I know there's still a few more questions, but it's 1:14, so I'm gonna bring it to an end here. Sorry, Bill, appreciate it. I feel badly about that, but the host droned on for a while. So Let me just say again, as we always do, thanks so much for everybody coming today. We appreciate your interest. Success of kids in the city of Milwaukee is of great importance to all of us. So again, thank you for your time, your attention, your interest, and most of all, thanks today to the interim, perhaps soon not to be interim, Superintendent Dr. Keith Posley. Thank you, Dr. Posley.
Thank you. Thank you.